morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Bob Rohrlack. I'm the president and CEO here at the Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. We're living in interesting times right now, but we are committed here at the Chamber to be as supportive as we can, as we all are adjusting but continuing to operate as normally as we can. We have a distinguished panel here today to talk to you about different issues that we all are facing and how we all can keep operating safely and get through this as quickly as we can. This morning at the Tampa Bay Chamber board meeting, we had 90 participants who were online to talk remotely about ways we can be supporting each other, ways we can make sure businesses are getting the information they need to be successful and carry on in these difficult times, and making sure they knew the resources that are available to them as they need assistance now. So that's why we're here today. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on tampabaychamber.com for reference to go back. And we encourage you to inform your fellow business leaders who aren't able to be a part of this webinar to go to the website and look at the resources and this webinar we have available. Today we have 4 panelists that I'm going to go ahead and introduce, and then we'll get straight into the questions. Brian Butler is the president and CEO of Vistra Communications, an integrated marketing, communications, and consulting agency with a broad range of clients. Prior to the founding of Vistra, Brian served as the director of biodefense policy on the Homeland Security Council in the White House, where he co-authored the National Strategy for Pandemic Influenza Implementation Plan. Next is Terin Cremer, Esquire. Terin is the managing partner of Barbas, Cremer, PLLC, a boutique employment and business law firm. She works with businesses across the country on issues related to human resources and client contracting. In addition to her work in the private practice law, Terin is an adjunct professor for Florida State University's College of Law. She is also a mayoral appointee to the City of Tampa's Civil Service Board, where she serves as an administrative judge resolving City of Tampa employment disputes. Next, we have Carole Post. Carole is the City of Tampa's Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity, which oversees development and construction services, real estate, affordable housing, historic preservation, and the convention center. Carole recently returned to Florida after nearly 20 years in New York City, including 10 years with the City of New York, where she led many of the city's building recovery efforts following 9/11. In the coming months, Carole and her teams will be working closely with Tampa's businesses and economic sector to help revitalize the city following the coronavirus. Last but certainly not least is Eileen Rodriguez. Eileen is the Regional Director of the Florida Small Business Development Center at the University of South Florida. She is responsible for policy development, strategic planning, human resource management, and the administrative oversight of a $3.1 million budget. She has been at the SBDC for 22 years, providing one-on-one confidential consulting and teaching seminars in English and Spanish in the areas of starting a small business, international trade, and women and minority certification. Before joining the FSBDC at USF, she also owned her own business. Now let's get right into the questions, because we have a lot of information to share with you all today. Our first general question is, what's the #1 issue you are currently seeing in the market, and what advice are you giving to overcome this challenge? Brian, why don't we start with you on that?
Good morning, Bob, and good morning, everyone. Bob, great question. I think the #1 issue and challenge that we're seeing right now is overcoming fear and overcoming the idea that if I have become a victim of this virus, that I'm gonna die. And I really don't think that's correct. I think the number one challenge is, and it's for all of us, and that's to practice, what we're calling today social distance. As we spread out and keep ourselves safe, it also helps to keep those around us and those important in our lives safe as well. We want to make sure that we don't do anything to hinder the lives of our first responders, our medical facilities, et cetera. So we all play a huge role in that.
Good. And Carole, from your perspective at the city, what are you seeing?
Good morning. Thank you for having me join as well. I appreciate it. I think similar to what Brian just referenced, I would say there's a general concern, and then there's one specific one I could articulate. Generally, we think the biggest issue right now is uncertainty. There is so much uncertainty about what lies ahead and what the implications are for our businesses and our economy, and all of our residents, frankly. We've compared this, so many of us have been through incidents in the past, whether it be a hurricane or a flood or a tornado, and you gear up for it, the event occurs, and then it concludes, and people are able to assess their damages and set a path forward. This is not like that, and we know that the uncertainty about what the window ahead for us is creating a great deal of anxiety. It's also challenging us from a municipal perspective in how to most appropriately assist folks when we don't know exactly what the full range of damages will be. And on that point, I think one thing we're finding from our hotline call center, probably one of the most challenging sectors is our sole proprietors, self-employed and independent contractors. We know there are lots of resources being spun up to help small businesses, whether it be local, state, or federal, but there seems to be a gap and a dearth of resources for that individual, that 1099 employee, that sole proprietor. And so I know there's experts on the panel, we can discuss it more, but that's probably the main concern we're hearing from the business sector.
Good. Okay, very good. Our next questions. What actions do I need to be prepared to take should one of my employees receive a COVID-19 diagnosis? Terin, can you shed some light on that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob. Good morning, everybody. So I'll premise this with, I'm an professional. However, we are getting a lot of questions from about what to do if their employees have an actual diagnosis or have a suspected diagnosis. And so the most important thing is to have them self-quarantine. These are the guidelines that the CDC has provided to us, and it's what we're encouraging all of our employers to do. Right now, our saying is to self-quarantine for at least 14 days. And then at that point, they can come in if they have been free from a fever or other symptoms for 72 hours. These are the guidelines the CDC gave, and that's what we're following to try to minimize any kind of liability that you might have from that employee spreading infection. In addition to that, at the time the employee is going to let you know that they think that they have a diagnosis, if they've been at work for a while, then you are going to want to notify anybody who they've been in direct contact with that you have somebody with a confirmed case. Now that's only if there is a confirmed case, which given the lack of testing, there's not too many of those. So you do not have an obligation as an employer if you don't have that confirmed case, but you may still want to just let your other employees know if you do have those concerns. We have been getting requests from medical professionals to not say you need to provide a doctor's note to return to work, because frankly, they're so bombarded right now that they can't put together a medical note. And so that's why we're going with the CDC guidelines of the 14-day quarantine and the 72 hours clear from any fever or other symptoms.
Okay, good. Brian, anything else to add on that?
No, Bob, I don't think I have anything else to add to that.
Okay, good. And before we go on to our next question, I want to let the audience know we've been working in conjunction with several business organizations throughout Tampa Bay to make sure we all are sharing information. The South Tampa Chamber, Brandon Chamber, Ybor Chamber, Riverview Chamber, North Tampa Bay Chamber, Uptown Chamber, the Plant City Chamber, Amplify Clearwater, Lakeland Chamber, the Tampa Downtown Partnership, and the West Shore Alliance. We're all sharing information because we know it's important that businesses stay connected and know what's going on. All the businesses operate throughout the region and have employees that live throughout the region. So it's important to be working together. So thank you all for joining us on this. Our next question, what time horizon should I have for planning to make it through the COVID-19 period? Carole, can you address that question?
Well, I can attempt to provide just some insight to, there's no crystal ball here. And again, to my earlier point, I think the uncertainty of how to define this incident is what's creating a fair amount of anxiety and issues for us. Probably the most viable way to try to assess this is to look at some of the nations that have experienced this curve somewhat ahead of us, and to see, we're already seeing some countries that look like they're on the downside and the sort of the recovery side of this. The populations differ, the circumstances differ, and so there's no specific timetable that we can abide by. But I think the sense is that this is not less than 90 days, but maybe not more than 6 months. And again, we want to be as helpful as possible, but we also don't want to misinform or give anybody false expectations. So I think there's a sense of hunker down until we have a better sense of what that horizon looks like. Some of it being based on what we're seeing other nations do in their life cycle of the event.
Okay, very good. The next question, if my business is under financial pressure, what are my options and what is your guidance on taking on debt or staying afloat? Eileen, to stay afloat. Can you address that one?
Sure, would love to. So one of the things that the SBDC has been doing is we've been helping our small business clients with trying to figure out the different possibilities, all the different programs that are out there for them. So I'd like to just take a minute and just kind of describe the two programs that are available. One is at the state level and one is at the federal level. And with the state level program, we're looking at the Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan Program. I think many of you have probably heard about this. And right now, this program was activated last Monday, March the 16th, by Governor DeSantis. He released $50 million for this program. Most small businesses can qualify for this program up to $50,000. In most cases, there are some special cases for up to $100,000, but those again are very special cases. These are interest-free short-term loans, so 0% interest. These loans are for 12 months. Applications are currently being accepted through May the 8th. And so one of the things I want to make sure that you also understand is there's a second type of loan program out there that is, before I move on for the SBA one, the one with the state of Florida, this one is good for companies that have 2 to 100 employees on the payroll. So I know, I believe it was Carole earlier was talking about programs for companies that don't have 2 employees, but this particular program is for 2 to 100 employees, again, on the payroll. These same businesses that are applying for the emergency bridge loan program at the state level can also apply for the SBA program as well. And what we want to do is strongly encourage business owners to apply for both, because one is going to help the other. So with the SBA's economic injury disaster loan, small businesses can qualify for up to $2 million. And this is a much longer term loan. These loans are for 30-year periods, and these are not interest free. However, I want to make the distinction. These loans have an interest of 3.75% on those loans for for-profit companies, and then for nonprofits, it's 2.75. And let me again make another distinction. The SBA loan does loan to nonprofit companies, and the state program does not. So the federal program is more of a working capital loan to help you with payroll, to help you pay the bills, any accounts payables, things of that nature. So what we're telling folks is go ahead and apply for the quick short-term state loan. And if you get that loan, then again, you're looking for the SBA loan. If you get the SBA loan, you could use the SBA money to pay off your state loan. So that way you're not worried about, you know, what's going to happen at the end of the year. I need to pay this loan off. It gives you time to find longer term financing. Okay. And I know that the other question was, you know, what can we do to, you know, what about taking on debt? Because that's what I've just been talking about, is taking on debt. You know, one of the things that you really want to look at, we're telling small businesses to cut costs before taking on debt. At this point, we need to cut all costs as much as possible. Also start negotiating with your landlords and your vendors. Talk to them. They understand the situations we're in, and a lot of them are being very, very flexible. Ask your bank for deferment of payments for up to 3 months. Again, everything's negotiable. Everything's on the table right now. So take the time to speak with your creditors, to speak with your vendors, and see what you can negotiate with them, because everybody's in the same boat. If you are taking on debt that does not include any type of forgiveness, then you really want to, you know, put together a really solid plan as to what you think you can do in order to start paying this down. I know it's a little difficult at this time because we don't really know what the future holds, much like Carole just mentioned, but just, you know, take a deep breath and we will get through this.
Okay, good. Let me go to a couple questions we've gotten online.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead, Brian.
What Eileen said?
Sure.
One of the things that we're also recommending, in addition to the things that Eileen mentioned, we're recommending to our small business counterparts and clients that go back to your bank now and try to increase your line of credit, because you really need to do that now before you spend down all of your cash and capital, because that's a much better conversation with them now before you hit rock bottom. So it's very important. Our banker actually reached out to us last week, and we're working right now to increase our line of credit because we know how important that is.
Good. I'm going to go to a couple questions we've gotten online because they're pertinent to where we are right now in the conversation. Concerning the loans you mentioned, Eileen, the interest is for 12 months, and then does it change after that?
That's a tricky question. So the answer is yes. It does change after that. So you will be assessed interest. However, this is only a 12-month loan. So what you don't want to do is go over that 12 months, because then you're going to be in default of that loan and you're going to go to collections. So it's not like it's going to convert into a longer term loan. It is due in 12 months.
Okay, good. And there's a question, do we have anyone who can help us put common language and outcomes to the new stimulus bill for local businesses and nonprofits? I'll answer that we at the Tampa Bay Chamber are looking to have a seminar as soon as we can, once we get the final language, and explaining the programs and first steps you need to do. But back to, so that answers that question. Back to talking about these programs, it sounds like the first thing, communication. Talk to your attorney, talk to your banker, talk to your vendors, talk to your customers, be in communication. That's the #1 issue of all of us working through this together. Everyone's having to adjust, but communicate with those that you do business with and who do business with you. Yes.
May I suggest one thing also that we have heard some businesses have had success with, and to one of my colleagues' former points, that really nothing is off the table, or at least shouldn't be, in terms of trying to be creative and find solutions about. This would have to do with rent payments, where we've seen a few landlords and tenants agree to a solution whereby the tenant is temporarily relieved of paying rent for, say, the next 30 or 60 days, but the balance of that rent is then absorbed into incrementally across the balance of the rental term. So it ensures that the landlord remains whole, but it relieves the pressure on the tenant and spreads that obligation out across the balance of whatever their rental term might be.
That's a great example of working together to get towards a common goal. One more question, and then we'll get back to the questions we have. Do we have to go through a bank in order to apply for the SBA loan, or is there a more direct method? Eileen, can you address that?
Absolutely. In fact, you do not go to a bank. This is a loan that you apply directly to the SBA, and the SBA is going to loan you the money directly. So there are no banks involved. So what we've been telling everybody is to go to that website. That website is disasterloan.sba.gov. That's the SBA's website. I will tell you that their website went down yesterday. They had over 1 million hits. So the volume is large. Obviously, this is not just for the state of Florida. This is for the entire country. So be patient, please, because they did get the website back up and running today, but I'm sure it's going to be equally as taxed today.
And just like we were all being advised working with airlines and hotels, if you can go to their websites later at night, off hours, your odds of getting in and getting serviced are better. But that requires less sleep. Okay, back to our questions that we have. If my business is under financial pressure, what are my options and what is your guidance on taking on debt? Oh, we talked about that, sorry. Next question. What employee compensation and other factors should we consider if our business is required to shut down due to the COVID-19? Terin, can you address that?
Absolutely. So I'm getting this question a lot in terms of, we know this is for a finite period of time. We don't know when that finite period of time ends, but we do know that once we can go back to work, we want these employees. So what do we do with them? There are a couple of options. One is you can do a temporary layoff. You can say that the layoff is due to COVID-19, and in your layoff notification, you can advise the employee that you have every intention of rehiring them when they come back. The second is temporarily furloughing your employees. This is something that you can do for hourly employees, where you can furlough them for a couple of days of the week. So maybe you have everybody moving to a 2-day work week instead of a 5-day work week because you don't have as much time. Or you can furlough for the entire time period and furlough for the entire week. And you can do that for hour or salaried employees. I've also seen some employers take their employees from salaried exempt to hourly non-exempt and put them into overtime categories just because they're not working full-time. So they're essentially changing over their full-time salaried employees to part-time employees. Some important things to note is that your employees, if they're laid off, if they're completely terminated during a reduction in force, or if they're furloughed, are going to be generally eligible for unemployment. And so you might see that when it comes back to your unemployment rates, but it is something that they're eligible for even if they're furloughed and still your employee. If you're doing any of these changes, I would encourage you to talk to your insurance and your benefits broker, because you don't want to accidentally disqualify your employees for benefits. So if your benefits plan requires that your employees work 25 hours a week to be eligible for benefits, and you decide, okay, I'm going to keep them on, but I'm going to furlough them the entire time, they might thereby become ineligible for their benefits, and you would have to provide them with COBRA notices. So a lot of different options out there. There's no one size fits all. It really depends on what type of income you're looking at, whether your employees have the ability to telework, whether they're able to work on a shorter term basis. So it's a lot of details that I can get into, but I think that's a pretty good highlight.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I would just offer one suggestion. We've heard information coming from, and I've worked with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, which has a program called short-term compensation for employers. And I don't know the details of it. If folks want to explore that, I would encourage them to. But it's the solution is about the ability for one employer or multiple employers to retain their workforce during a temporary slowdown by having a work share situation. So I could point folks to that, to the Florida DEO website, and the program is called the Short-Term Compensation Program for Employers.
And DEO is the state's Department of Economic Opportunity, which I think you mentioned. And it's on myflorida.gov, correct? Or you go straight to DEO?
I have it at floridajobs.org.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
so many of these things are cross matrix.
Right. Okay, good, thank you. And that's a key point today is, please, if you hear a website address given, Write it down, and if we all can repeat website addresses that we're sharing, that's really where you're going to get a lot more in-depth information. Next question, Brian, for businesses and teams that are working remotely, what are best practices in transitioning to remote?
Well, another great question. This is evolving daily. And I think many of us, especially us older folks that were used to working in the comfort of being around others all day, some are finding it very stressful to even be working at home and working remotely. But there are some great things. You know, what we've done, we started ordering additional laptops about a month ago, because we anticipated that we'd have more of our workforce to keep them in the game that have to work remotely. So we started to train them as the best practices of how to work remotely, how to use tools such as Skype and Zoom and others, and find ways to have fun with that in the process. It was more stressful to some of our team members than I even anticipated. But we found a way to just send them home on practice days to do it. And eventually everybody's out. We have about 4 or 5 people in the office today, but really everybody can work remotely. You have to stay engaged with each team member or each employee as they're working remotely. Out of sight can't mean out of mind. So I do random calls, I do random Skypes, I do random text messages, and we ask our leaders within the organization to do the same, because we want everybody to know that even though you aren't sitting next to somebody, they're just a IM away, or they're just a Skype away, and that keeps them from being from feeling isolated and feeling alone. And then we're going to start posting just fun things that people are doing as they're finding how to work remotely. You know, some say this is the new normal. I think it's partially a normal. I think we'll get back to, you know, some of the things we've done in the past, but I think we're all, as business owners, business leaders, we're going to realize that we can work remotely better than we thought we could. And I know a lot of others are going through the same thing right now.
Right. Good. You know,
If I could
go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, if I could jump in, you know, and that's excellent advice, Brian, because that's exactly what we've been doing. In fact, I think it was right before Hurricane Irma, we decided to step away from desktop, and everybody in my office has a laptop, so we can just kind of pop it off of the docking station and run if we had to. And that's been working really well. Just to kind of add to your comment, we're doing the same thing. We use Microsoft Teams. USF uses that platform. And so everybody on my team has Microsoft Teams. And so we're constantly calling each other and chatting and everything on that platform, which is really nice. I mean, in fact, I've barely gotten off of that platform since we went to work from home last week. And so our folks, what we've been doing is we've been posting photos of us working at home, you know, everybody with their nice, you know, SBDC shirts on, and then, you know, either shorts or flip-flops or whatever, you know, whatever makes them comfortable working at home. So we've been kind of posting that and sending those back and forth so everybody can see what their home office looks like. And that's been fun. I think that's alleviated a little bit of stress.
With our chamber staff calls, I've been amazed how quiet everybody's dogs have been for those meetings. The dogs are being very cooperative.
Just add one thing real quick, Bob.
Sure, go ahead.
If you have not had a remote workforce traditionally in the past, I'd encourage you to reach out to your workers' comp provider or your insurance broker, because you want to make sure that if anything occurs while these employees are working from home and working remotely, that you're going to be covered. And there's specific provisions in your workers' compensation coverage that's going to allow for that or disallow that. And you're going to want to make those changes if you've got employees working from home now.
Okay,
That's
good.
excellent advice, Terin. I'll tell you, I hadn't thought of that. So thank you. And we're going to do that today.
One question we got from somebody watching the webinar. We talked about loans from the government and how to access those, and a brief overview how they work. Do you anticipate, or are there any current grant programs for business that are available?
So at the federal and at the state level at this point in time, I have not heard of any grants that have been made available to small businesses. I know I've been in communication with a number of different organizations locally that are looking into that process and trying to find ways to make that happen. I will tell you though that things are changing on a daily, if not hourly basis. And so we need to just stay tuned to what's going on in the news, because if something like that's going to come out, you will hear it on the news, you'll hear it on Twitter, you'll see it on Facebook. But what I would strongly suggest is look for a reliable source, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I would encourage small business owners to take a look at our website. We have a dedicated website to coronavirus, a landing page. Our website is sbdctampabay.com/coronavirus. So anything that comes out new, trust me, we're going to put it on that website for you.
And Bob,
yes, go ahead, Carole.
Add to what Eileen said, likewise, the city is working very hard to try to identify grants versus loan resources. The CDBG is we think, a viable source for that, the community development block grants. That we have a limited pool of funds there, and we are looking at that particularly with an eye toward filling what we think is the gap for the sole proprietor and the individual independent contractor. So again, there are most of these grants come with, very lengthy and prescriptive requirements, but COVID has, maybe to a good extent, kind of broken down some of those walls. And so we'd like to be able to explore alternatives where we could apply those for the most pressing needs.
Good, very good. Okay, next question is closely related. How can a small minority business rapidly train or coach their team to adapt to these new realities? Are there any unique perspectives for small, I know we've been talking a lot about, but minority business or businesses in those categories?
I can tell you that I've been asked this question quite a bit. Obviously, minority certifications is one of my specialties. And so a lot of my personal clients have been asking, is there something out there for us, because I'm a veteran, because I'm a woman, because I'm a minority. And honestly, there's nothing that I've been made aware of that is very specific to any business that holds those types of designations or those types of certifications at this time. At this point, it's really, we're all lumped in together just as small businesses.
But I've got that question a couple times. I'm sorry, Carole.
Well, I was just going to comment that maybe just pivot that question a bit, and echoing Eileen, I haven't seen anything that is specifically geared toward that sector, but what the city is doing is being very aggressive about translating and pushing out content and information to communities that may be challenged otherwise to access that. So for example, we have dual language is pretty common on our website for almost all of our notices, but we've gone an extra layer to go into Creole, French, Guyana, and others where we have notable populations across the city that are suffering the same as all of us, and we want to ensure that they have the same access to resources and tools as readily available as possible.
Good. And to the panelists, I want you to know you're hitting the information people are wanting to get, because the questions are starting to fly in. So we're not gonna be able to get to them all, but we'll do our best. Just want everybody participating to know that this is good that we're addressing the needs of business. Can someone speak to the emergency paid sick leave requirements that are planning to take effect April 1, which I know it's all been kind of sketchy. Terin, can you talk a little bit to that?
Absolutely. So hopefully you have heard by now that there was legislation passed last week, and it went through fairly quickly between the House, Senate, and Governor, excuse me, President Trump signed it into law. It's effective April 1st, and it applies to all businesses that are under 500 employees. So that means even if you employ just one person yourself or go all the way up to 499, it's going to impact you. The Emergency Coronavirus Act, it can be broken down into two pieces. The first part is emergency FMLA. So you might find it surprising, and you might be kind of tuning me out right now thinking, oh, I'm an employer under 50, so I don't apply to FMLA. That is no longer the case. With this new emergency FMLA, that does apply to employers under 50 as well. So it's 1 to 499. And so that's going to provide 12 weeks of job protected FMLA for employees who have worked at their employer for at least 30 days. The employees will get unpaid time for the first 10 days, and then thereafter, they're going to be compensated by their employees by at least 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, with a cap of $200 per day and $10,000 total coming from the employer. This is available to full-time employees as well as part-time employees, depending on the number of hours worked. Although it is unpaid for those first 10 days, employees can elect to use PTO during that time. Now, who is eligible for this emergency FMLA? It's going to be, again, employees who have worked at their employer for the last 30 days, and they need the leave to care for a child under 18 whose school or childcare has been closed as a result of COVID-19. So I've had specific questions. Does this include my at-home daycare? Yes. Does this include my nanny? Yes. Does this include daycares, schools, any of those types of things? Yes. So employees who, which is all of our state right now, for the most part, with closed schools, are going to be eligible for some component of this if they've at an employer who's under 500 and have been there for at least 30 days. So that's the first part of the leave. The second part is the emergency paid sick leave. And with that, employers have to provide full-time employees with 80 hours of paid sick leave for circumstances that are related to COVID-19. This also, again, applies to part-time employees. The paid sick leave is going to be at the regular rate of pay again, and this is going to be $511 per day with a $5,110 max if the employee actually has COVID-19 and is taking off work for that reason. It is capped at $200 per day with a $2,000 max from the employer if the employee is caring for children under 18 whose school or daycare has been closed. So there are different rates of pay under this emergency paid sick leave depending on what type of, what the reason for the emergency paid sick leave is that you're taking. So the federal government has offered some tax reimbursements for the money that employers are paying out, and it's going to be something that they've said is not going, you're not going to have to wait until next April. They're going to hopefully implement this, and it'll be 2 weeks from when you file for it, you should be able to get the reimbursement. And the IRS is supposed to be coming out with more information on how that goes. The big takeaways are, if you're an employer and you just realize that this applies to you, by April 1st, you have to have a notice posted at your job sites or distributed to all of your remote employees if you've gone remote, letting them know of their rights under this. And that those posters are at the Department of Labor's website. And then you also need to put into place before April 1st employer policies on how you're going to handle these and the processes in which your employees could go about requesting these emergency leaves.
Okay, so there's a lot to absorb in that answer. So I think for a small business, the key is talk to their legal counsel. Make sure they're getting guidance in this.
It applies to you, and you've got actions that you need to take before April 1st. So definitely contact your legal counsel.
Okay, good. Another question from one of our viewers. Can someone speak to the potential government intervention into business interruption insurance coverage? Currently, insurance companies are not covering global pandemic. I know that that was a rider option people could get on insurance. Has there been discussion with government of intervening in that?
I have actually heard that there are discussions underway, but I don't have any details as to any outcomes at this time.
Yeah, I think that's just been discussion at this point. For loan qualifications, can you discuss some of the? Sure, go ahead, Brian.
Those are the kind of questions when you have and you not find the answers. That's why we hire. I mean, that's why we elect local officials, and that's why we elect people in the Congress. So I'd highly recommend on questions like that, you send that to our representatives. The more of those questions they get, the more they're gonna pay attention to those questions. So right. I've sat on a couple of those calls recently with national leaders, and it's really important that we voice our concerns in this community when those kind of questions arise.
That's a good point. That the role of all the chambers that I've mentioned before is we do talk to our elected officials on a regular basis, and they expect that and they appreciate that, and we work very closely with them. When they hear directly from small business of what the needs are and what you're experiencing and concerns, it truly matters. So if you don't know who your elected representatives are, you need to get to know them quickly and stay in contact with them. Offer help, support, and guidance, and letting them know what your issues are. Very good point, Brian. Thank you for making that. Carole, you want to say something?
I just wanted to emphasize what Brian said, and to the point where the chamber can help influence that, and others, particularly from the mayor's office. I think what you're seeing, and as Terin so eloquently described, there are a lot of changes happening very quickly to what had been sort of tried and true aspects of our business environment, whether it be unemployment insurance or benefits and those things, where these things are all getting turned on their head quickly. So if we want to try to influence them positively to fill the gaps as they are materializing, now is the time to strike.
Perfect. Very good. Back to our loan discussions. Eileen, we have a question for loan qualifications. Can you share some examples of additional information that the applicant believes would assist the loan review committee in making its decision? What kind of things they look for?
Yeah, so again, if you go to our website, you will see, sorry, it's just that we have quite a lot of things that we're juggling at the same time, but yes, we have a full list of all of the documents that are very necessary in order for us to process those loans. And I'm going to make a really important statement here. A lot of people in their rush to get their application in have not actually filled out or have not provided all of the documents that are required by the state of Florida in order to process this loan. This is not a good idea. You really want to submit your loan application with all of the required documents. If the application is complete, what we're going to do internally is we review it, we see that it's complete, and then we send it directly to the committee. If it's incomplete, then we have to spend time trying to get a hold of you, explaining to you that you need to give us your taxes, you need to give us whatever the other documents are. And you lose time. And so we understand that time is of the essence here. So take that extra hour or 2 hours in getting all the documents that are needed, so that when you do submit your application, it is complete, and it'll move so much faster that way.
Investing an hour upfront can save you days later.
Absolutely.
And time is money. So that's great advice to be offering everyone. Thank you for that. Terin, a question. Do employees qualify for leave if they miss a few hours a week? For instance, if the employee is caring for a young child 20 hours a week only?
Yeah, so the legislation itself is silent on this, but what I've been advising and what I'm hearing other employment attorneys advising is there's nothing that prohibits you from being able to grant this on an intermittent or on a part-time basis. So if the employee is working for 30 hours a week, or I guess in this example for 20 hours a week and doing another 20 for childcare, then yes, they would be eligible for that paid leave for the additional 20.
Okay, good. Let's take a question. What are the most important things that a small business owner should be aware of related to the recent legislation? I think it's constantly changing. Try to stay current. Anybody want to address that?
I'll try to address it broadly.
Okay.
Now is not the time to be isolated and sit off on an island and try to figure this out by yourself. I participate in calls with the chamber and other business groups because these things are happening so fast that I don't think any one of us can keep up with the tempo of how this is changing. So we must rely on groups just like this and engagements just like this. I mean, Terin is putting out some wonderful information. Yeah. In fact, I've had a couple people in my office already come in and listen to this. Because while I think we're doing some great things, I think there's some other things that we need to pay attention to as well. So this is your knowledge factory right here. Very good.
I would echo that. I think one of the most important things that businesses can do, or really everyone can do, is attempt to find reliable sources of information. There is a lot of information flying around, and the Twitter sphere and the social stratosphere may not always be the best source of information. So the sense of looking for reliable sources like the chamber, and you rattled, there's so many attenuated aspects of it, which is a good thing. You're down in at the very, very local level. the SBDC site. Eileen has been an incredible wealth of information. Everything, I'm learning new things as well from Terin.
Yeah.
So identifying reliable sources is key. I would also recognize that for the city's perspective, the tampagov.net website has been refreshed. It's refreshed almost hourly with information and content. It is an incredible clearinghouse of content, information, and resources that can bring you to some of those reliable sources. There's not enough time for, as Brian said, for an individual to try to scour everything individually. So rely on some of these clearinghouse resources. I know the Chamber has an awesome site, and the city's site is a really helpful one. Many of the websites we've all been rattling off are all there in one single place to jump through and check those out.
And Carole, that was tampagov.net for the city?
Yes, tampagov.net. And there's
Okay.
a COVID banner at the top, and that COVID banner will bring you to a wealth of a wide array of resources.
Perfect.
Just one additional note is that City of Tampa also has a recovery hotline. So for those that are not as able to access electronically, we still have the old traditional telephone to use. And that hotline, I'll give a phone number for it. It's 833 TPA info. So it's spelled TPAINFO. It's actually 833-872-4636, 833 TPA info. That's available from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can call that hotline, and one of the easiest things they'll do is help facilitate you finding the website or the resource that answers the question you're asking.
Good, very good. And also, we're getting a lot of questions about people wanting a text of this webinar. It will not be available on text, but it will be available recorded on tampabaychamber.com, where you can go back and review all of this information. We understand this is a lot, and in this current situation, there is a lot of information. So I encourage you, take the time. Investing up front will save you in the long run. Gosh, this is a question we prepared, but I think a lot of it's been covered already. What resources are available to help small businesses through this time? We've talked about the financial assistance. We've talked about looking at the Tampa Bay Chamber website. We talked about looking at the city website. Is there a general website for emergency preparedness type information, or for basic overview kind of law review information that people can start to do their research on if they don't have an attorney?
Yeah, so the websites that I have been getting the majority of my information from is the Department of Labor's website. They're going to have everything that I outlined on the FFCRA employee paid leave. They're going to have the required notices there. They've also got FAQs in terms of what your requirements are for distributing notices. In addition to that, I've been looking at the EEOC's website. That's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's website. They have a lot of information about what you can and cannot ask your employees if they're testing positive or not testing positive, whether or not you're allowed to take their temperatures, how far you can go with your employees without violating reasonable accommodations or ADA concerns. So those are the two sources that I would go to at the top, which are the EEOC's website as well as the Department of Labor's website.
Good, thank you. I'll open this up to the group. For someone who, the self-employed person whose business has come to a complete halt, where can they get assistance, and how would they go about starting a process for assistance? Would that be SBDC to start to explore there for the self-employed?
Yeah, so, and when we're talking about the self-employed, we're talking about that one-person operation. I'm assuming that's what we're referring to here. Absolutely. So obviously my entire team is working, and I'm not exaggerating, around the clock on COVID right now. However, we understand that some of these businesses simply do not qualify for the programs that are currently out there. So get in touch with us. Yes, we will have somebody reach out to you and talk with you. I've dedicated one individual to just deal with these types of businesses that currently can't take advantage of these loans. So I'm just going to ask for your patience, because we are dealing with thousands of inquiries at this point. But if you go to our website, which I will tell you once again is sbdctampabay.com/coronavirus. If you go to that website, you can click on it and ask, and we will get back to you.
Good.
And I could offer a couple as well. I certainly, the city's website provides a wide range of ways to quickly access sites. I've been relying a lot on the DEO website, the Department of Economic Opportunity. There is a Rebuild Florida sort of map, and you can follow different threads depending on what your circumstances or situation are to help, again, just serve as a clearinghouse and do some of the heavy lifting for someone who's not sure where to go. The other one that I thought was really helpful was restoreyoureconomy.org. And there's like some toolkits, there's preparedness plans, there's just, again, this range of variety of resources and tools. Every situation, every person and business's situation is different and unique. And to some extent, without having to canvass hundreds of sites, relying on this handful that they'll find through these reliable sources will be a good way to try to tailor some response that's useful for their particular need.
Good. Another question we've gotten, I'll throw this to you, Terin. Can I have a salaried employee work part-time and only pay for part-time? There's not enough work to keep him or her busy. What are my options?
Yeah, so there is, this is allowed under the law during an economic crisis, which COVID certainly arguably is such. And so what you would need to do is draft a letter to your employee, changing the terms of their employment arrangement with you, changing them from exempt to non-exempt. So they're now hourly but eligible for overtime, specifying in it that the reason for the change is the COVID-19 pandemic. So that way, if there's ever a challenge that you misclassified them under the Department of Labor guidelines, you've got the reason clearly stated in that letter. And then ideally stating in there that you will return them to a full-time salaried position at the end of the pandemic.
Okay, very good. We're starting to run close on our time. This has been a very fast and informative hour. I want to thank our panelists for everything you've done, but we have a couple more minutes. Carole, can you talk about what's being discussed now with the municipalities and the county and schools, school board on the recommendations that are coming forward probably later today? Can you give a brief overview of that?
For sure. Well, brief, I'll do
well,
the best.
Okay.
Brief. This has been a really fluid scenario for the past several days. I think everyone is trying to achieve the best ends that they can to protect the society, protect our residents, and yet balance that with the need to preserve our economy and our businesses as much as we can, and it's a delicate balance. So what we anticipate will come forth after the emergency policy group meets at 1:30 today would be a multi-jurisdiction agreement adopting a safer at home directive and perhaps a nighttime curfew. Again, that is all up for the EPG to ultimately determine, but it is likely that the safer at home, or some have seen it, the stay at home directive would in some way form an underpinning to that. And let me, if I could just take a moment and talk that through, because we really want to emphasize that it is a necessary step to emphasize, to really create a more stringent form of social distancing, but it is not a lockdown, it is not a shutdown. And it's really important for our businesses, our communities, and our individuals to understand that. So at its simplest form, safer at home is really just a more stringent form of social distancing. It's meant that all individuals are strongly encouraged to exercise social distancing to prevent the continued spread of the virus. But there are many businesses that can continue to operate and function notwithstanding a safe-at-home policy. And if every business it can either operate in its normal status, for example, a bar or restaurant cannot. A bar is the nature of a bar's business is to collect,
to gather,
aggregate people in a space. So unfortunately, that one can't continue. But there are many businesses that can operate and still meet social distancing standards, such as electricians, plumbers, lawn and pool maintenance. There's many businesses that can effectively telework. And one thing I would point out, we talked a lot about how to adapt into teleworking. Make sure if you are teleworking that your client base knows you are open for business, notwithstanding that you are off-site. So that communication piece is important. But the nature of the stay-at-home is that if a business can either by its natural sense operate and yet abide by social distancing, or by adaptation abide by social distancing. So for example, restaurants that now are doing takeout and delivery, that would continue. By either the natural sense or the adaptation, those businesses will be able to remain open during a safer at home environment and continue to provide their services and hopefully sort of endure through this trying time. What I would point people to is the tampagov.net website, that COVID info. One of the first items at that list is an FAQ about safer at home. We published it just yesterday. It is voluminous content, but easy to navigate for any business to visit that information. And I'm pretty confident you will find yourself somewhere in a scenario so that you can better predict whether you are going to remain in business or not, or in some way be limited in business. So visit that information, and that should be really helpful to try to interpret what safer at home means.
and I think as we all are working with a different way of conducting business, Carole mentioned the restaurant industry. Contact your favorite dining establishment. This region is known for a great food network and great opportunities with quality food. Contact your favorite dining establishment, order takeout, order pickup. Keep them going through this tough time. They're really being impacted. It's a great way you can support an industry here in our community. So just offer that word of encouragement for everyone. We're getting close on time. If anyone has a last bit of advice they would like to share, we do have to be quick on this because we're going to run out of time. Just give me a hand wave and I'll call on you. Or let's do this. I'd like to go to each speaker first and thank you very much for giving your time and your wisdom for this discussion. We are blessed to have you all here and the work you're doing to help businesses through this difficult time. So I sincerely thank you on behalf of the entire Tampa Bay Chamber. We're going to go around the speakers. I'm going to ask you to give your website address. Please say it twice. And if you have a phone number you'd like to share as well, that's fine too. But let's make sure we do the website. I'm going to start with you, Terin. What website can you refer people to?
Sure, yeah. My firm's website is www.barbascremer.com. So that's B as in boy, A-R, B as in boy, A-S. My last name, CREMER.com. So again, that's www.barbascremer.com. And the firm's phone number is 813-421-5442. Thanks, Bob.
Great, thank you. Brian?
My website is www.consultvistra.com. www.consultvistra.com, or just find me on LinkedIn.
Good, thank you. Carole?
Hi, I would point people to tampagov.net. That's tampagov.net, clearinghouse of information, and I would point them directly to a set of FAQs that would define essential services under our Safe at Home policy.
Terrific. Okay, and Eileen?
Our website is sbdctampabay.com. And so it's SBDC as in Small Business Development Center, sbdctampabay.com/coronavirus.
Good. Thank you all very much. And again, our chamber website is tampabaychamber.com, where we're trying to provide an up-to-the-minute clearinghouse for all the information discussed today and additional information. Once again, thank you very much to our panelists. We were right up on our time. This has been an incredible wealth of information. Thank you to the hundreds of people who signed up to participate and get the information for this conference. That's it for now. Thank you all for being here. Please stay safe. Practice your social distancing, but not your social separation. Reach out to somebody and see how they're doing. Thank you all. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for leading during this most difficult period.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.